Let's have a walk around the new Ford Ranger Raptor, obviously the UK European spec as opposed to the massive F-150 Raptor you might be used to from the States. This isn't much less aggressive though. If you have a look around the front, you can see what the designers have done. It's got a much wider front track than the wild track that it's based on. You've got all this lovely flared wheel arch action here. The way it kind of multi-steps up just gives it a much more aggressive stance on the road. And you've got the awesome 3D lettering at the front, which is so American, but so cool. So other cool stuff to point out, you've got a bespoke set of BF Goodrich tyres that have actually got a reinforced sidewall because they're made for Baja racing, not really just ambling around fields like we've been doing. Yeah. We're parked up right next to Goodwood Racecourse, so there's all sorts of planes and cars coming in and out for the festival tomorrow. But if I just carry on showing you some cool bits here, you've got this lovely Sidestep, which feels like it's made out of like pig iron or wrought iron or something. It's so tough. And at the back, you've got the pickup bed, which is pretty standard, same sort of size as the Wild Track. I always have a little bit of trouble with it because you can't really fit motorcycles in there without a lot of difficulty and a lot of squeezing around, but no, that's just a problem that I have. You've got rowdy decals, so everyone knows exactly what you're driving. And then you've got these really nice kind of 3D cuboid tail lights at the back, which are carried over from the standard Ranger, but it's just the bodywork around it has just been amplified and kind of put on steroids and bulked up, and it just makes it look really angry. So the Ford Ranger Raptor, what is it like to drive on the road? Actually, it's not that different to any other pickup really. It feels a little bit wider, if anything, and that probably is because it is a bit wider. But it rides really nicely. This really jacked up Fox suspension I thought was going to be terrible on the road, but it's amazing how comfortable it is. And we have just come from driving it across lumps and bumps through farms and chalky, soft, slippery surfaces, and you can be flying down those and it will quite happily crest over a lot of the worst of the bumps, and actually on road it does the same sort of thing too. Ford were actually telling me earlier that they've had a few customers that are, let's say, less than happy about the fact that they've shrunken their 3.2 litre Duratorque engine down to the 2 litre EcoBoost that's in this, but there's more torque, there's more horsepower, it's more responsive, and it's much better on fuel. And on the road, it's really nice. It picks up well. There are 10 gears in this gearbox, which seems a little bit overkill, and you can actually feel it a bit when you're going through. But I guess again, that's for fuel economy reasons. Compared to the rest of the Ranger range, this Raptor is really expensive. And because it can't carry a 1-ton payload, you can't do all of that cheeky business of getting your VAT back and all of that sort of stuff. So it is going to be an expensive car, but it does come with lots of kit. You get Ford's top spec infotainment system, electric seats, obviously your air conditioning. It's got a built-in Wi-Fi functionality as well, reverse parking sensors and cameras. So you get a lot with it. And you get these bespoke Raptor seats that are amazing. They are so comfortable and so grippy, and they have Raptor written on them in big letters, which is just cool. So you're probably wondering who the target audience is for this, because it's certainly not going to be your typical builder who might already have a Ranger Wild Track. It's so much more expensive than that. This has in fact been designed for desert racing and jumping over sand dunes and stuff like that, which just seems a little bit overkill and a bit bonkers, but it all works. It still drives really well on the road. It can obviously handle some serious off-road stuff. So I guess the person that's going to buy this is just someone that really wants a Ranger Raptor, and that includes this guy. So the other neat feature you get on this Raptor is selectable driving modes, which does the same sort of thing as you get in a hot hatch or a sports car. it adjusts the throttle mapping, the steering response, but this one has got a Baja mode on it, which when you select it basically allows you to go completely mental off-road, jumping it, skidding it, it does all that sort of stuff. But I think it's the first time I've ever come across a pickup truck that you can put into sport mode and then flick out of that and go into mud and rocks or go into rock crawling mode. But it's certainly the first pickup truck I've ever driven that's got a Baja mode on it, which is just brilliant. I also really like the fact you've got the manual paddle shift, and they're not plastic. They're like a nice chunky metal. They feel really weighty in the hand, which is actually better than a lot of performance cars I've driven recently. But these also come in handy for operating the 10-speed gearbox, which just seems like a ridiculous amount of cogs, but you can flick it into manual mode. You can cycle through for like the rest of the day because it takes so long to get through all of them, but it does equate to a really smooth driving experience when you flick it into drive and you just let it do its own thing. So what do you get for your £48,474 inside? You get all those bits I mentioned, but you also get the attempt at craftsmanship with the stitching and the leather and this nice red stripe on the steering wheel, so you know exactly when your centre is a cool touch. But there are still a few Ford touches where you can tell, you know, these things after all are mass produced. Like you've got the plastic vent covers that if you pull them feel like they're just going to come off, and these Ranger Raptor trims around the vents here just feel like they're kind of stuck on a little bit. No, these are not massive things, these are just little bits that I've discovered after driving it for a while. There's probably a lot of off-road geeks out there that love to get into their axle articulation and all that madness, but the kind of modes that you get here, you've got a downhill descent control, you've got a locking diff, you can turn off the traction control, and obviously you've got the different driving modes up on your display here. There's been a lot of talk about jumping this thing over sand dunes and blasting across the desert in it, but I guess for most people they want to know what it's like to drive in the UK, and it's actually not intimidating at all. It obviously is a bit wider than your standard Ranger, but as you can see I'm driving on a classic British B road that's so thin, and it's absolutely fine. The steering's great, gives plenty of feedback, but it's also really light. It goes from lock to lock within a couple of easy twirls, which makes manoeuvring it around pretty simple. The reason for the lack of payload capability, I believe this can do about 698 kilos as opposed to the ton that everyone else can do, is the fact that they have basically taken the Ranger chassis and ripped it apart and started again, and the suspension's all new, and it just means that if they were to get that payload they would have to take away all of the stuff that makes the Raptor awesome. So I can kind of see where they're coming from there, because this is designed for racing around in deserts, not picking up 1-ton bags of sand from Juicens.